Broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world. You are watching Now Media Television.
Welcome to Power CEOs, the truth behind the business. I'm Jen Gaudet, your fearless host, entrepreneur, investor, and strategic coach. Why are we here? Because iron sharpens iron. And when we bring successful entrepreneurs and investors to share what's working in business and even what's not, what we are all able to do is learn and grow. As a result, our businesses grow, and the ripple effect impacts not only ourselves, our teams, and their families, but also our communities and our world. I am really excited to share with you my special guest today. He is a dear friend of mine, and he is truly an expert connector. He is an expert at strategic partnerships, JV relationships, and taking your business to the next level based off of the relationships that you have. I am really excited to welcome you to the studio. Welcome, Charles Byrd.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here, Jen.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you because the themes of the last couple of shows have been slowly building on relationships, the importance of relationships in business, and how do we form those relationships to begin with and drive that to a partnership that's going to absolutely monetize in our business is the conversation I would really like to start with. So can you kind of give us a little hint as to how did you get into doing JVs? Like, what did that look like for you? How did you discover that? And how are you helping others to partner in business?
Thank you so much. So I'll give a little bit of backstory straight into today. So I help businesses scale through joint venture partnerships. And that backstory is I started in the Silicon Valley. I worked in the Silicon Valley for 15 years, was a director at a billion-dollar software company, left to get a taste of that entrepreneurial freedom I read about in books. Started with a low-cost productivity course. A digital course was my first product, and being new to the online space, didn't yet have a list or connection. So started going to a lot of events and connecting with people online, and quickly found my new peer group of entrepreneurs already had my ideal clients in their communities. So I started setting up presentations to other people's audiences, delivering a high value training and offering the deeper dive course, and started growing my email list quickly, making sales, making a positive impact. So I thought, since this is working, what if I take my IT and systems background to simplify and systematize the entire joint venture process, which I did. And eventually people wondered how I book 2 to 6 joint venture promotions to other people's audiences for my offers every week. And I was at a mastermind in Aspen with some other entrepreneurs. My phone's blowing up with text messages, messenger messages, people knocking on the room door going, how do you line up so many of these deals? So I decided to put together my first high ticket event called Pure JV. And that's the market I've been serving ever since, at this point through a consulting offer. And the steps you want to think about going into this process is, number one, creating a unique joint venture strategy for your product and market, identifying your most profitable partners, communities, stages, referral partners, learning how to connect with those partners through warm channels so there's no cold outreach. My favorite part, how to guide the conversations to land the deals, frequently on the first call. Operationally, how to execute those deals along with turning each one into 2 or 3 more. At this point, 10 of my clients in the first year added 1.25 to 6 million in additional revenue. I had 4 clients on stage with Tony Robbins in the last couple months, one that just got booked on Joe Rogan. I'm working with a marketing legend, Dr. Robert Cialdini, of the book Influence to Scale, the Cialdini Institute. And this is really about building fantastic, high quality, long-term relationships, all the while lining up opportunities to get in front of more of your ideal clients.
So let me ask you, because we've actually talked about this, I believe, in the past. There's some people out there who are like, I don't want to sell my soul to partner with other people, and there's kind of this weird vibe out there around this concept of JV. How do you overcome that objection when people have maybe had a bad experience in the past with a partnership, so that people can actually have that true relationship? Because you and I both know, as we build our brands, it's so important that we partner with people that are on brand for us, aligned, et cetera, et cetera. How do you overcome that objection, or that weird taste that some people have in their mouth from a bad deal gone wrong in the past?
Yeah, great question. So for one, it's by aligning based on strong principles and values. So number one, as you're getting to know someone, make a determination on them. Are they someone you would like to work with, do business with? Do you like the way they work and think? Are their ethics aligned with you? If you're getting weird vibes from them, listen to your spidey sense, because it's right. If you feel like generosity and they're looking out for you, and of course you're doing the same for them, think to yourself, would this be someone I'd like to go hang out with at dinner and enjoy that experience? From there, beyond them as humans, it's making sure there is alignment between products and services, meaning what are the reasons someone is following that leader, and then make sure your product or service aligns and complements that. We're looking for folks in complementary adjacent markets, where by putting the two solutions or offerings together, you're taking a client a lot further. So one of the reasons these can fail is if people are setting them up, but they don't know how deals are structured, or they don't know what assets to send and share to make sure that a promotion is successful. So it really comes down to having making sure there's alignment, both with the people involved and certainly with the products or services, company messaging, and so forth. And then making sure you have a system for negotiating those deals and then executing them. When those fundamentals are in place, these things go very well. And if for some reason they're not in place, that's when we can see hiccups on the way.
Absolutely. And I really want to stress, like what Charles just said, is systems are everything, and making sure you are set for some success from the beginning. And one of the things we talk about frequently on this show, Charles, is the importance of having mentors, having coaches, having those people to guide us through the process, so we're not reinventing the wheel and making the same mistakes over and over again, so we're learning from other people's mistakes and having that shortcut to success. And I really like that you've highlighted, yes, it's a system, yes, there's a process, yes, it's important to align in values, but you are that expert. You are literally like the Sherpa of joint venture, and you have that expertise. And so talk to me a little bit about, how do we know we're ready to start a joint venture?
Okay, great question. So one thing that I'll highlight is these can work beautifully well for you even as an early new entrepreneur, and there is no upper limit to how big these can go. So some of the fundamentals you certainly would want to have in place, or will want to have in place. Make sure you have a product or service that you're happy with and that is actually getting people results. That's a really key part of it, because if you don't have a product or service that converts or gets people results, you certainly don't want to take that to other people's audiences. So you really want some of the fundamentals of a core offering that is complementary. But other than that, there's no barrier to entry, because these can be started in very simple ways. These can be done through referrals or coming in to present to someone else's group to share value. And in my case, this was my strategy from the beginning, being very new to business, a $200 productivity course, and I use this from day one. So my point in stressing that is there is no barrier to entry with it, other than having a product or service to start joint venturing with.
Yeah, so I mean, we do have to break in just a moment, but I just want to kind of encapsulate this before we break because I know where I'm going next. I have a burning question for you, but it's going to take a little more than a minute. So you can start JVs immediately, and I concur with you. I actually learned, one of my first coaches in business taught me relationship marketing, if you will, and it was the art of building those businesses and building a referral network that is people that you want to do business with and break bread with. So I completely align with you in all of the things that you're doing here. But for the audience, like no matter where you are in business, if you have a product or a service that is getting the results that you're saying you're trying to achieve with your clients, then you're ready for a partnership. Now it's just time to start getting out there and make sure you have the right guidance, have a coach, have a mentor, learn about what you're doing so that you don't make all of the mistakes and have the pitfalls. We do have to take a brief break, but we will be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Power CEO's Truth Behind the Business. I am here with Charles Byrd, and we are talking about joint venture and partnerships in order to grow your business. Yes, this is the art of relationships in business. You know I'm a very big fan of this. This is how I do business as well. And so, Charles, I'm going to dive right in because I know I want to talk about how do we find these partners, how do we do this, but before we do that, how do we avoid finding the wrong ones? Have you ever done a partnership or had a client who went into a partnership and it was just a disaster? Like, what was that, and what are the red flags before that we can now avoid that pitfall?
Sure. So early in the relationship, one of the things to avoid is you want to be the person giving value first. So simply jumping into a conversation about what's in it for you is a recipe for that deal to never happen. We want to come into conversations with a sense of how we can be of service to others in a systematic way. I recommend having go-to ways to provide others value. These can be, of course, after listening to what their goals are and who their clients are, what they're working on that has them excited, come up with ways to serve and support them in meeting those goals. These could be introductions. They could be recommending a tool or resource or some new AI script that cuts their time in half at doing something. So number one, come into the conversation providing value first. Number two, make sure you have a system. So if you're putting together a joint venture, I'll tell a brief story of one of my clients who followed part of what I taught her, but not the rest of what I taught her. So I taught her how to systematically line up having others on board to promote her product or service. She was heading into a product launch where many partners are promoting at the same time. And in her case, she did a great job getting partners on board. They're like, we're in, let's do this. But then she failed to send them the assets that they needed to successfully promote. And thereby, when her launch happened, and she's like, all these partners fell through. What happened? And I'm like, well, right when you got off the call where they agreed to, did you send a confirmation and set expectations when they could expect to get those assets to support that, which of course was a step that she missed. So when you don't have a system or framework, it's far easier for things to not come through the way that you may want or expect. But when you have great communication, you have white glove kind of service and providing the partner with everything they need to support you and promote you to their audience or community, it makes the whole thing run dramatically smoother.
Absolutely. I mean, what you're talking about is setting a partnership up for inevitable success by providing the partner with all the tools and anything that they may need in order to be successful in that partnership. I mean, that's no different than anything else we do in business, really. So it's simply having a system for creating these partnerships. So I know the next burning question that everyone is going to have is, how do I find these partners? What does that look like? And you're an expert in this. So what would you tell them?
Perfect. So people have this conception that they're going to reach out to all these people who have no idea who they are, and it's going to be this process like that, when it's actually polar opposite of that. We want to WFW, work from warm. When we work from our warm network, everything gets a lot easier. So you have your friend network, your colleagues, your current and previous clients. These are people who already know, like, and trust you. You have rapport and strong relationships. This is our front line where we're going to start these kind of joint venture conversations. And keep in mind, it's not just your direct network, it's their network as well. You can continue radiating out. So you've got online things like LinkedIn, Facebook, these kind of online resources. And then there's going to in-person events, conferences, and then there's also online events and conferences. So number one, when you're going physically to an event, for one, you want to make sure that who that is attracting is either full of your ideal clients or partners based on the subject matter. And then as you go into those kind of bigger industry events, have a framework for connecting with folks, determining if there's some high-level synergy, and if that merits a follow-up conversation. And handing out your business card is like handing out a wish. You have zero control over if they follow up with you, where when you get their contact info, I want you to take 100% responsibility for that follow-up, and you want to follow up quickly because there's a half-life to the warm and fuzzy coming off an event. If you follow up with me the next day, we'll line up a call, off we go. If you follow up in a month and a half, I'll have no idea who you are, and you wouldn't have any idea who I am if the tables were turned. So we want to have a framework for following up and nurturing and guide those conversations to feel out where there are winning outcomes and make those happen.
So Charles, I'm going to ask the next question because sometimes some of our viewers are new to business, or they're just starting a business, or maybe they're an introvert. I'm hearing that we can go to these in person, and I go to these in-person meetings, but I don't know how to approach other people to start this conversation. What's your advice to the introverts in the room who go to an event? How can they bust through some of the fears and barriers that they have so that they can actually be successful as they go and collect business cards, as you're suggesting, for example?
Sure. So number one, have a framework. I have several clients who are introverted, and by simply having a step-by-step approach, keep in mind you are in an in-person event. Simply as an example, you are not trying to run around and meet everyone you can. In fact, again, it's the opposite. You're trying to connect really deeply with 2, 3, 4 people where you're spending more time getting to know them. And again, having a framework for it. So an easy approach is simply walking up, saying hi to someone, and where are you out of? Like, what city do you live in? And this would assume you're traveling somewhere. And if it's somewhere local, simply asking, like, what area in the city are they from? And this gets the conversation going because you're going to have some level of rapport building up if you're familiar where they've been, or maybe you have gone to an event where they live or a vacation or something. You're going to have some way to start building rapport quickly. Start asking about what they do and who they work with. And number one, you're going to want to think of ways to serve and support them with, again, ways to provide value first, connections, resources, input. And two, in the back of your mind, as they explain what they're doing, you're matching up, does your product or service complement that? And if so, explain a little bit about what you do and offer to have a follow-up chat post-event.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And, I want to highlight something that you said. Ask them a question. Let them talk. Like, what I have found whenever I've gone into a room that I didn't know anybody or wasn't comfortable, and full disclosure, I am not an introvert. I am the opposite. I'm the one who has to shut up and listen. But as an introvert, one of the best things that I have found is ask the question like what you were saying, because people love to talk about themselves. And if you're not really sure where to go with the conversation, just opening it up and letting them talk that creates more rapport. And that was a skill set I actually had to learn being an extrovert. I had to be the one to ask the question and shut up and listen in order to let that introvert come through. So it kind of plays on both ways. So thank you for sharing that. And then once we have that and we have this follow-up conversation, the next question I know I'm going to get in my email is, how soon is too soon? How much value do I give? When is that, like, what is that perfect timing, if there is such a thing?
Great question. So you can line these things up even on the first call. So what I walk clients through is having predefined ways they can provide value. And I also call those value bursts. And what I mean by that, something that's meaningful to them, but not a huge time suck for you to actually provide. So you're offering something like an intro or a connection to some training that highly complements what they're doing, some type of resource like that. Maybe they need a copywriter or a web developer, and you know one, so you offer that kind of connection, because that will take you 1 to 5 minutes to do, yet it is providing value. And as far as how fast you can line up joint venture opportunities, I have a specific framework for doing that on the very first call. So not that 100% of them are fully dialed in on the first call, but the majority of them are. So sometimes people think they need to build a relationship for years before lining something up. And in reality, that it's great to build long-term relationships, but it also can be a disservice to not create bigger opportunities right out of the gate. So in my framework, we're connecting somewhere, maybe at an event or maybe through an introduction, jumping on an initial call, and on that call, you're feeling out what are the winning outcomes. That it's great to predefine what those are. It could be, maybe they would be someone you can serve and support through your offer, maybe a joint venture partner, speaking opportunity, referral partner, and whatever feels like the biggest win, you can guide the call directly into it.
I absolutely love that. We do have to take a quick break, but before we do, have a plan. Go into your call, have a strategy, and understand what your winning outcomes are when you meet with people. Because if you have an understanding of and clarity of what you're looking for and what winning looks like for you, and you also brainstorm what winning might look like for them, everyone wins. And I think that's where JV is so powerful. When you build these relationships and you build these partnerships, everybody wins. Your clients win, the people you're serving win, and both parties win. And that's truly how we're able to accelerate our business. We will be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Power CEOs, the truth behind the business. If you're just tuning in, you're going to want to go to nowmedia.tv, go to shows and click on shows and Power CEOs and catch the first half of our show. Why? Because I have Charles Byrd, the expert authority in joint ventures and the person who is teaching us how to monetize our relationships rapidly, how to build those partnerships, how to go deep, and how to win in business with relationships. And he has just dropped so much amazing value on us already. You don't want to miss it. But we're going to dive right back in. So we've talked a lot about how do we find the right partners, aligning values. We've talked about where we can find potential partners, and we've talked about following up after an event, virtually or in person. But my next question becomes, how do we maintain these relationships over time? Because it's such a challenge in today's world. We're torn in different directions. Our business becomes more successful. How can we do that in our businesses?
Yeah, it is very important to maintain relationships over time and make them stronger over time, because we are very busy and attention is spread thin and long days. And it's like, okay, well, when would I fit in actually strengthening and building and maintaining relationships? So I'll tell a brief story that leads to exactly how to do that. Number one, I was at an event a few years ago and chatted with a friend for like 3 hours. And when we were wrapping up, he's like, hey, if I ever come to mind, just ping me. And I remember how foreign that felt to me, because I was like, well, what if you're having dinner with your kids? Or what if you're in the middle of an interview on TV and I'm just pinging you? But then I was like, I'm going to do that with everyone, because if someone's coming to mind for you, that means something reminded you of them. And that's typically all it takes to reach out. So maybe you just talked to one of their friends or clients and that reminded you of them. That's a great reason to simply ping them. And what does that mean? That could mean a text message or shooting them an email. One of my favorite ways to communicate with folks is through video. So all of you who have iPhones, and you know that the other party has an iPhone, you can shoot a video just directly on the phone and text it over. It shows your energy, your facial expression, the tone of your voice. They immediately feel closer to you. And the truth is, it's way faster than sitting there typing. So it's received better. You connect with them more and build more rapport, and it's faster. If you're sending a message from an iPhone to an Android, you likely want to use a tool like Loom or Vidyard to record that video so that when they play it looks great, because when you go between the two, they can look compressed and a little weird. You can also do this through email. You can send voice memos. You can send audio memos. Same kind of thing where, one of my clients is super into tech, and he's got one of those Zoom walls like Tony Robbins. And so I got a new camera, and I was like, it reminded me of my client Kane. I'm like, cool, I'll check in with him and show him the new camera. So I send him a picture of it. He replies back, great camera. Hey, I'm having some speakers for an event. We're having John Assaraf, Kevin Harrington of Shark Tank. Love to have you on that virtual stage as well. I'm like, absolutely, that sounds awesome. And keep in mind, I didn't ping him seeking any type of opportunity like that, but rather I just pinged him as a friend, which brought me up top of mind. This is why you want to reach out to. You're maintaining and building relationships over time. And that way you're not pinging people just when you need something. That's the fastest way to not get a response if that's the only time you ping people. So when people come to mind, just ping them, shoot them a quick note, video, text message, audio note, and also be on the lookout for their ideal clients, customers, speaking opportunities, things like that, because when you're continually handing others opportunity, a tidal wave of opportunity comes back to you.
You're absolutely right. And it may be karma or whatever, but when we're people of value, I say this all the time, Charles, as long as I'm adding value and I'm a person of value, I don't know where it's going to come from, but it's going to come back in a way that is exponential to what I've already put out there. So it's not always in how we seem. And I really like that you spoke to pinging people when they come top of mind, because you're absolutely right. You want to get them to see you. You're top of mind by thinking about them in a way other than trying to close a deal or get something. So I thought that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I kind of want to shift focus a little bit though, because we didn't really speak a lot about other people's stages. I know you mentioned it in the beginning of the episode, but how important is it for us to find partnerships and to get on other people's audiences, on other people's stages, in order to increase our visibility, our credibility, and our authority in our own space?
So it's absolutely one of my favorite ways to line up joint ventures is getting in front of other people's audiences and communities, because it's the ultimate one-to-many way to provide value and marketing channel. So instead of having singular conversations one at a time, which are great, but just as an example, yesterday I presented to a entrepreneur community that one of my friends, Brian Kurtz, runs. He had like 70 people on that are in a program he has. And so I came in, delivered a high value talk all about joint ventures, the types of joint ventures, how to find partners, how to stay connected with those partners and move deals forward. And then all kinds of folks from that community have booked calls to have conversations about, hey, how can I do this in my business too? So for one, you're the authority because you're the one in front of the room. There's an inherent transference of trust and authority from that host to you. So you don't need to win these people over from scratch. That relationship the host has with their community is transferred to you by way of increased trust and authority. So they're listening to you. The topic that you are an expert in is all of a sudden top of mind because that's the subject at hand, gets them thinking about it. And you're painting a picture of how their world will be better with what you're providing for the right folks. And then you are getting more clients and deals from it. So when you're doing this, not just once a year or twice a year, what if you were doing it every month? What looks different in your business? What if you're doing it every week? That's 52 additional promotions per year. So it gets pretty exciting pretty quick.
It absolutely does, which brings me to the next question that I know is on everybody's mind. How the heck do you keep track of it? How do you keep all of these relationships going with everything that you're doing? And what does that look like from a time management standpoint?
Yeah, so having an IT and systems background, and my first market that I entered was the productivity market. So I have systems and standard operating procedures for 100% of this. So for one, I'm not that you would have to use this, but I'm a big fan of Evernote. So every conversation with folks, I have a note for. It's tagged with their name and where I met them. As introductions come in and out, like I get 12 to 20 referrals per week to $1 million plus businesses. All those inbound intros are tracked. Of the 30 to 50 intros I send a week out, all of those are tracked. For that one, I use a tool called The Brain. I have no affiliation with them. It's a dynamic mind map I use for tracking introductions coming and going. And then just communication tools, leveraging video tools like Vidyard. And also, as your business starts getting traction, you're going to start hiring folks. Like when you get a VA and start building a team, and then they start keeping track of important emails and things like that. So you just want strong systems behind everything you're doing. Like when you go to an event, have a framework for the follow-ups where you're not just adding someone's info to your phone, blended in with 1,200 or thousands of other contacts. As you get their contact info, take a screenshot, make a record of these, have a framework, whether it's on paper or a note or a project management tool like Asana, for the types of follow-ups coming off an event, like introductions to do for other people, client opportunities, joint venture opportunities, speaking opportunities, podcast opportunities. That way you're organizing the follow-ups so you can prioritize what is most valuable and timely.
And so I'm going to sum this up in a nice little bow because we are drawing towards our next break. But have a system for everything. Understand where you're going. And for those of you who are right-brainers who are all over the place and don't like systems, guess what? This is how we scale our business. If we don't have a system, if we don't hire people, if we don't do things in a way that it's systematized, we can't take somebody and train them to do our job. That's going to be setting them for failure. So having a system for everything, having that system documented and being able to train somebody else to reproduce that is so incredibly important, especially when you're trying to build relationships, because one thing that you don't want to do is drop the ball. You want to be a person who does what they say they are going to do it when they say they're going to do it. And so it's very easy for us to drop the ball if we don't have a system in place. So it's so incredibly important. Thank you for pointing that out to us, Charles. We will be right back after these messages. Welcome Welcome back to Power CEOs, Truth Behind the Business. We are chatting with Charles Byrd. He is the expert of all things JV and partnership. He is a relational capital king and a super connector of amazing human beings. Charles, we have talked about all kinds of things. We talked about how to find great partners, what to consider when we're partnering with other people, what does it look like to follow up with people and to maintain relationships long term, and so many other things. We've talked about systems, having the system in place. We've talked about setting our partners for success. Let's talk about what kind of JVs are possible in business, because we've talked about some things in passing, but I want you to just line out what are the types of JVs that are possible, and how can we help people make that happen?
Beautiful. So when I worked in corporate and I thought of the term joint venture, to me it sounded like two huge companies basically getting married to produce some new product, and they're really tied in. What we've been talking about on the show is really more about promotional partnerships. So I'd love to go through 4 main JV types. Number 1 is presenting to other people's audiences. This can be in person on a stage. It can be presenting through Zoom to a group. So someone else already has your ideal clients in their communities. You're going to come physically or through something like Zoom to provide value to that group. Again, it's a one-to-many in the marketing approach. So that would be number 1. Number 2 are referral partnerships. So those of us who get referrals, I'm sure many of you get referrals because you do great work, but you don't have a framework to control as they come in. They basically come in by luck instead of by design. So when we create a system to systematically generate referrals, that ramps that up dramatically. And keep in mind, it's not just referrals from clients. Those are fantastic and always appreciated, but also referrals from peers. Like, someone doesn't directly have to work with you to know how you serve and the results you get folks to be able to send those kind of referrals. So that's number 2, referral partnerships. Number 3, and this one is one of my favorites as well, they're embedded partnerships. What that means is your product, service, or messaging is inside of other people's offers. And these are the gift that keeps on giving, because you're making one deal that represents ongoing lead flow. One of my clients, a company called Prime, actually does $100 million a year just through this strategy, where they partner with people teaching folks how to create a consulting offer or a course or a program, and they offer as a bonus creating the business entity as a bonus within the program. So someone learns how to create a business offer, and their business entity is embedded in that offer, the creation of it, at cost, and then they're invited, hey, you've got a business, would you like help with your taxes? And they've literally grown that to $100 million a year. So that would be number 3, embedded partnerships. And then number 4, social JVs, doing things like podcasts, interviews. This is where you're sharing credibility, messaging, exposure, leveraging other people's audiences through interviews.
Which is what we're doing right here, actually.
Exactly.
And so as people are digesting this and they're thinking about, okay, I'm hearing this, there's all these different ways to partner. I'm not sure how to get started. I want to learn a little bit more. Do you have a resource for them that they can get started? Maybe something that you have for them, or a resource that you can point them to so they can start to learn a little bit more about this if they want to get a little more educated before they dive in?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a resource that we'd love to share. For one, you can pop over to charlesbyrd.com, and we have something special for you. You can go to my.purejv.com/power-CEO. And we'll share a link to it again. It's my.purejv.com/power-CEO. And what that's going to be is a concise training on joint ventures. It goes deeper than we've been able to go today. And you'll get a checklist of the 10 things you need to have in place to successfully execute joint ventures. So definitely go check that out and get the benefits from it. and excited to serve and support you with that.
Fantastic, Charles. And if they're like, great, I'm going to do that, and now I'm ready to take the next step, and I want you to lead me through this process, is that something that you are interested in doing, or would like to share a little bit more about what to expect in that situation?
Sure. So if you're interested in a conversation, you can pop over to charlesbyrd.com. There's a application there to schedule a call. And really, we take a look at what you have going on in your business, your core product, service, how far along you are in the business. And then from there, match you up with a program that helps put this entire JV system in place. My core offer is a 5-week consulting framework that helps you create that unique joint venture strategy for your product and market, identify those most profitable partners, communities, stages, shows you how to connect to those partners through warm channels. My favorite part, how to guide the conversations to land the deals, along with executing those deals and turning each one into 2 or 3 more. So if you have a business that's up and going, doing well, you're looking for additional lead sources, speaking opportunities, referral partnerships, definitely pop over to charlesbyrd.com and apply for a conversation.
And so, Charles, I know you also do high-end masterminds for clientele as well, do you not? And
we do indeed.
And can you share a little bit about the power of doing a mastermind? Because I also host masterminds. I am a huge fan of them, and not everybody understands exactly what happens in a mastermind, but it really is about curating the people in the room and forming those deep relationships by mutual learning and sharing. So share a little bit about your masterminds and what that looks like.
Sure. So we have a mastermind called Flow, and it's all about deal flow and creating great relationships. And a lot of industry type events, there's a lot of speakers and phenomenal content, which is great. But the main reason I go to any event is for the relationships. So we've engineered the Flow events all about creating great relationships and curating folks that have the ability to partner together, refer each other, do deals together. So it's about generating deal flow while you're there, and of course building those great relationships that build over years to create winning outcomes for everyone involved. So if you are interested in one of our upcoming Flow events, definitely go to charlesbyrd.com as well, and in your entry there to schedule a call, definitely mention it and we'll tell you all about it.
Fantastic, Charles. And so you've given so much value. I really appreciate everything that you've done. I strongly encourage everybody to visit Charles' website, charlesbyrd.com. If you are listening or if you're reviewing, it is well worth it. Take advantage of his free resource. Charles, I have one more question for you. You have been so tremendously successful over your career and since you've joined this entrepreneurship journey. What's next for you?
Well, continuing to ramp and scale this up. So I continue growing my own team, and we're helping more and more people with this process. And it's extraordinarily satisfying to do this because it's way more than running a successful business. It's about really expanding impact. So if you have a business, especially even an impact-driven business, and I help you 2x, 3x, 10x that, it's just amplifying the good in the world. So number one is expanding Pure JV even further. Number two, started a new AI company that is partnering with leaders in specific verticals. Our AI tech will solve specific problems in those verticals, and then we'll be building those companies up over a 2 to 3 year window for exit. So working hard to be as cool as Jen. So getting into that space as well of founding companies through partnerships with intention to exit.
That's super awesome. I'm so glad to hear that because I know you are the relationship king, and relationships are genuinely what has been the secret to my success. And know it's the secret to your success as well, and many others. And so it's great to hear that now you're doing your own partnerships and growing some businesses to exit. That's where the most fun is in the game of business for me right now, because it's the most challenging, really. Startups are always a more challenge than an existing company, but I'm so happy that you were here. Thank you for sharing your amazingness with my audience. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And you, yes, you, if you are listening to this and you have been along the ride for the past hour, it is time to take action. You know this, you know it's coming. Knowledge is only a small piece of the equation. The magic happens when we take action. You have heard Charles talk about going to events, virtual or in person, following up with people, setting up a system, whatever it was that you heard Charles say that you're like, I don't have that down or dialed in my business. Today is the day you take action on that. If you need help with that process, Charles offered a lot of resources. Go to charlesbyrd.com, reach out to him, and let him be your coach through this process and cut the time to your success. Whatever that action is, today is the day to do it, not tomorrow and not next week. Today, let's create that positive momentum. Let's accelerate our growth and see success. Unfortunately, all good things do come to an end, including this show. But the good news is we'll be here same time, same station next week. But until then, win today, win this week, and we'll see you next time.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.